They told you the Civil War was a tale of honor, strategy, and noble sacrifice. A brother against brother tragedy etched in blood and valor. But what if that was all a lie? Peel back the velvet curtain of history's bloodiest stage, and you'll uncover chilling truths that twist the war's legacy into a nightmare. In 1864, Union engineers executed a covert operation so explosive it could have ended the war overnight. Imagine 4 tons of gunpowder, a tunnel carved by coal miners turned soldiers, and a blast that obliterated an entire Confederate regiment in seconds. But when the smoke cleared, horror replaced victory. Chaos and racist panic led Union rifles to turn on their own black comrades as Southern troops mercilessly slaughtered men trapped in a 30-foot crater, their grave dug by their own hands. This wasn't battle. It was betrayal buried deeper than the corpses. Then there's Shiloh in April 1862, where thousands of boys lay gut-shot in the mud. Their wounds glowed eerily blue, a phenomenon soldiers called angel's glow, believing it to be divine intervention. But 140 years later, a teenager munching pizza cracked the mystery. Their saviors weren't angels, but parasitic worms secreting antibiotics into festering wounds. Even nature conspired to cloak the war's darkest ironies. This is the Civil War you never learned, a story where betrayal ran deeper than trenches, and even the dirt itself worked to hide history's cruelest truths. Prepare yourself. By the conclusion of this video, you will reevaluate every textbook, every monument, and every falsehood that continues to tarnish this nation's history. Before we dive in, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel to help support our community. During the scorching summer of 1864, Union and Confederate forces found themselves in a fierce stalemate near Petersburg, Virginia. This vital railway junction was essential for General Ulysses S. Grant, who understood that capturing it was key to ending the conflict. However, General Robert E. Lee's seasoned troops had fortified the city, creating seemingly impenetrable defenses with their trenches and artillery. Enter Lieutenant Colonel Henry Pleasants, a mining engineer who had transitioned to military service and devised an audacious plan that seemed straight out of a fictional tale. His idea was to dig a covert tunnel directly beneath the Confederate lines, fill it with enough gunpowder to create a significant explosion, and create an opening for Union forces to advance. Against all expectations, his superiors approved the proposal. The task fell to the 48th Pennsylvania Infantry, comprised of men who had previously worked in coal mines before enlisting. They faced the arduous job of digging, battling the oppressive Virginia clay with shovels that frequently broke, while dealing with skeptical officers and the ever-present threat of Confederate patrols discovering their efforts. Nevertheless, these soldiers ingeniously overcame the challenges. Lacking proper timber, they repurposed fence posts, and in the absence of ventilation, they fashioned bellows from old backpacks. After a month of grueling labor, they successfully excavated a tunnel measuring 511 feet, reinforced it with whatever wood they could salvage, and packed the end with 4 tons of black powder. Before dawn on July 30th, they ignited the fuse. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The fuse had failed at the final connection. Naturally, 2 volunteers ventured back into the perilous tunnel, sparks flying as they reignited the fuse, then hurriedly escaped as if pursued by a demon. At 4:44 a.m., the ground erupted. The explosion obliterated 300 Confederate soldiers instantly, leaving a massive crater in the earth, measuring 170 feet long, 80 feet wide, and 30 feet deep. Confederate defenses at Elliott Salient dissipated amidst the smoke. Union forces should have surged through the crater effortlessly, akin to water flowing through a sieve. However, the situation unfolded differently. Officers hesitated and commands became confused. Instead of maneuvering around the crater, soldiers charged directly into it, becoming trapped like fish in a barrel. The Confederate troops quickly regrouped, transforming what was intended to be General Grant's strategic triumph into a scene of carnage. General Ambrose Burnside had initially selected experienced United States colored troops, who had undergone weeks of training in breach tactics, to spearhead the assault through the crater. Yet at the last moment, General George Meade hesitated. It was likely suggested that allowing black soldiers to gain recognition for a successful operation was unacceptable. Consequently, the black regiments were replaced with inexperienced white troops who had not practiced the strategy. When the explosion erupted, these untrained soldiers were paralyzed with fear, akin to deer caught in headlights. Instead of executing the flanking maneuver they had been drilled on, they plunged directly into the smoldering pit, mistakenly believing it would provide them with cover. This decision proved disastrous. The crater's walls rose 30 feet high, with steep dirt slopes that crumbled under the weight of scrambling feet. Soon, thousands were crammed together in that nightmarish pit, sinking to their knees in the heated, muddy ground. On the opposing side, Confederate Commander William Mahone required no instruction. While Union officers squabbled, his men swiftly advanced to the crater's edge, armed with howitzers and Enfield rifles. What ensued was not warfare, it was a massacre. Southern soldiers later confessed that it felt akin to shooting fish in a barrel as they picked off Union soldiers trapped below. The true horror began when a few black regiments were finally sent into the fray. As Confederates began to bayonet surrendering USCT soldiers, panic ensued. White Union troops, aware that the rebels showed no mercy to those they deemed race traitors, turned their weapons on their own black comrades in a desperate attempt to survive. By the end of the day, the crater was saturated with the stench of blood and dismemberment. Over 500 bodies filled its depths, many still twitching as the oppressive Virginia summer heat bore down upon them. The final tally of casualties? The Union suffered 3,800 losses, while the Confederates faced 1,500. That crater did not merely consume lives, it obliterated any remaining notion of honor in this conflict. The most gruesome enigma of the Battle of Shiloh was not of the supernatural, it stemmed from the living. After 2 days of brutal fighting in April 1862, countless wounded soldiers lay trembling in the rain-drenched fields of Tennessee, awaiting surgeons who would never arrive. It was during this time that an eerie blue-green luminescence began to appear. Young men with severe leg injuries or abdominal wounds observed their injuries glowing faintly in the darkness, reminiscent of fireflies in a swamp. Soldiers referred to this phenomenon as angel's glow, a blend of hope and dread. Remarkably, those with these luminescent wounds seemed to defy death. Their injuries healed more effectively, and fevers subsided more quickly. For 140 years, accounts from aging veterans about this ghostly light were relegated to the realm of folklore. Then, in 2001, 17-year-old Bill Martin was enjoying pizza while his microbiologist mother discussed bioluminescent nematodes. His friend John Curtis's father specialized in insect parasites. Combining their knowledge sparked a revelation. They theorized that soldiers had inadvertently become hosts for these microscopic worms. It turns out that photohabdus luminescens, a type of glowing bacteria, travel within these tiny worms. Typically, these worms seek out grubs in the soil, releasing luminescent microbes that dissolve insects from within. However, the battlefield at Shiloh provided an ideal environment for these worms. The cool 50-degree nights kept human bodies warm enough for the bacteria to thrive, while the lower temperatures prevented our immune systems from overreacting. These glowing microbes were not angels. They acted as miniature pharmacists. The chemical luminescence was merely a byproduct of their production of antibiotics that eradicated gangrene in staph infections. Soldiers effectively received life-saving probiotics from these worms, which kept their wounds clean. So the next time you see fireflies, remember that sometimes nature's mercy comes from the most unexpected sources and may appear quite eerie. We have been led to believe that the crater was merely a tactical error, and that the glow of Shiloh is nothing more than a campfire story. However, if we investigate further, we uncover a startling truth. The bacteria known as worm puke did not only save lives at Shiloh, it continues to exist within us today. Photohabdus luminescens, the same microbes that emit that glow, have been combating pathogens in our intestines since 1862. What they do not want you to recognize is the connection between the decay that filled that crater and the racism that treated black soldiers as mere afterthoughts. The falsehoods propagated by commanders to mask their failures still linger in our historical narratives. Consider why we have monuments honoring traitors while the betrayal of the United States colored troops by Burnside is scarcely mentioned. Every conflict encompasses two battles, One fought with weapons and the other with deception. We have revealed the trenches of this struggle. Now I ask you, which side continues to capitulate?